dropped from 30th to 60th position on the 2022 World Press Freedom Day, GJA, and Ghana drops in World Press Freedom Index ranking. Supreme Court dismisses interlocutory injunction application against E-Levy. 600 entities to go on the GHN EPS by 2023. Finally, on the Daily Graphic, front page 5, labor unions call for political will. For what? Buy a copy and read. Supreme Court throws out injunction on E-Levy and government keen on improving press index ranking. Kojo Opom Nkrumah says so. Well, we have dropped to 60 from 30. My guest this morning is lawyer Justice Abdullahi. He is with the Crown Legal Bureau in Accra. He is also a lecturer, teacher of the law at the University of Professional Studies here in Accra. And Ajay Loratu is also here on the ticket of the NPP. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Assalam. I have not seen you both for the Eid. So, Eid Mubarak.
Officially, I would have to resist this attempt to make me look like I'm the rep of the NDC.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't have to. So long as the two of us are here and she represents the MPP, it will be seen as though I'm representing the NDC.
Madam Joyce
And I know Joyce is supposed to be here.
She will join us soon.
So please ensure that Joyce takes her seat immediately
before. I just said good morning to
before you. I am tagged as a party affiliate.
I just said good morning to you.
I remain Justice Abdullahi.
But why are you crying for?
Because it happens all the time.
And I announced you as Justice Abdullahi.
Nothing has been said.
Crown Legal Bureau.
You have no idea.
Is there something you should be worried about?
Absolutely.
We should worry about something I should be worried about?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I should be worried that I'm meeting two NDC people or what? Because
meanwhile,
you were introduced and you're already crying foul.
I have to.
Meanwhile, I just said I have not seen you throughout the Eid.
Johnny, you know what I go through on a daily basis. so I need to point it out.
I just said I have not seen you throughout the Eid.
on MPP. So Joyce should be here.
That's all I said. Haja, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's been 30 days of Ramadan.
Absolutely.
Fast. And I think that's what Justice should have been addressed.
That is what Joyce, I invited him to.
Yes, we celebrated Eid.
Johnny, Johnny in particular knows where I live.
You see us.
Johnny could have come home.
Yes.
He could have even sent me a message. He could have even called me. He didn't do any of those.
Oh, and but so does he need to
using this platform, I would even rush to wherever he is, even if he wanted a delivery.
I don't know what Justice
if you wanted me to be delivered to him,
he started the mischief too well.
Okay, so here we go. And the Ghana Revenue Authority says that it's still ongoing to roll out a common platform for all service providers on the E-Levy by July 1. Take a look at this.
Complain to your charging entity, or you have some difficulties or challenges and you think that you have been deducted the levy in a wrongful manner, and then you are not satisfied with what your entity is doing. GRE is also available. We have hotlines. We have our toll-free line, that is 0800 900 110. If you call that number, we'll be able to make sure that we are addressing your challenges. There's been a lot of collaboration with the charging entities. We are, even on the communication side, on the technical side, we are collaborating to roll out communication plans so that we come out with one single source of truth. We know that everybody comes out with the same information. If you complain to your charging entity, or you have some difficulties or challenges and you think that you have been deducted the levy in a wrongful manner, and then you are not satisfied with what your entity is doing, GRE is also available. We have hotlines. We have our toll-free line, that is 0800 900 110. If you call that number, we'll be able to make sure that we are addressing your challenges. There's been a lot of collaboration with the charging entities. We are, even on the communication side, on the technical side, we are collaborating to roll out communication plans so that we come out with one single source of truth. We know that everybody comes out with the same information.
The Supreme Court said that it is possible for a refund if at the end of the day the minority wins the case. The question to ask is, and that has not been told us, is that if they are refunding, are they going to refund with interest? And this is not clear to me. So I disagree with their decision. It is rather that the people of Ghana would bear the greater hardship if we continue to pay the levy. Then at the end of the day, it turns out that the minority will the pay. Because we have not been told by the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court said was that it told the GRA to keep proper records of the amount of money being paid or deducted. But the question is, if you are refunding in the event that the something matter goes in favor of the minority, if you are refunding in 3 months' time, in 2 months' time, are you going to refund with interest? Because once you take my money, you can't just give my money back to you. My money should have multiplied by the time that you are going to give it back to me if I were keeping it myself. So I think that greater hardship would rather be felt by the people of Ghana, not the government.
That's lawyer Abraham Amalaba there. Earlier you heard GRA top executive talking about the E-Levy. Joyce Bawumutare is joining us. She's special aide to ex-President John Mahama. Good morning, madam.
Good morning, sir.
Good to see you. Justice, let me start this with your press freedom. We have dropped. Reality or myth?
Johnny, this was expected. We have been, I think since last year, when we used to host the morning show on the other side, we had an occasion to complain severally about the threat to press freedom and how gradually the culture of silence was being introduced into our political discourse. I think we had several discussions about this, and we were hoping that things would be better. It turns out it's rather getting worse, and so it's not surprising that we are where we are. I mean, I would be disappointed if you had scored any better, considering the level of intolerance, the intimidation, the attacks, and sometimes the subtle threats that you receive. I've had my own, fair share of these, and some of them you just keep mute about it and hope that the inevitable doesn't happen because of the way it comes. On daily basis, you get this. In fact, I'm sure by the time I leave here today, I receive anonymous messages.
Don't be scared.
And sometimes the way some of them come, the final ones that you're going to do the bidding of your sponsors. Shame on you. And I'm sometimes you don't even know how to take some of these comments. It's as though, in fact, this is probably one of the reasons why I had to disown being a member of any of the political parties just before you started the program, because really, it's so annoying that you can. People do not even respect the fact that you can be independent in this country, independent thinker, and not be affiliated to any political party without, and still do the right things for the country. You must necessarily belong. If you do not belong, we must get you somewhere to belong to. And that's how the attack starts. Sometimes very subtle. But, Johnny, we've had several records of how, not just media personnel, but in fact, if you listen to media personnel, you may probably be mistaken about the quantum of the issues. Individuals, private individuals.
People who appear on television and
so
radio.
long as you have the benefit of a mic or a camera, or sometimes in just social media, and you decide to speak your mind, you become the target of everyone who is probably affiliated to the authorities, and it's very frustrating. We've had this going on for at least for the past 2-3 years. It's been so. It's so normal for everybody to refer to the cases of Tiger Eye as the beginning, but really, the Ahmed Swale's death. But I think we have had this for a period of time, way before, and it's just increasing. Ajafor's case, for instance, I was involved in getting him out of the BNI. And in fact, I wanted to tell you when you were in the show that till date, his laptops and phones are still with the national security. Till date,
as we speak. Are you kidding me?
As we speak, you can call him and put him on the line. As we speak, they still have custody of his gadgets. What for? Imagine what they went to do at TV3. I'm sorry, City TV.
Ghana, yeah.
CCTV. I mean, how is that how can you even imagine that this is happening in a democratic country? That a media house, armed men attacking innocent young girls. In fact, the first time I saw the young lady who was part of Caleb,
Zoe.
I felt so sad because her body, this is a tiny lady.
She's somebody's wife, I beg you.
I understand, but you see, this is not the kind of person that you need even a single police officer to arrest. In fact, she's the kind of person that even calling her on phone that the police is even after her, I'm sure she'll be scared. Yet you send about 20 armed police personnel driving recklessly onto the premises. To scare who? So needless and unnecessary. Now, if you keep doing some of these things and you get flagged, and you rather complain and try to explain it away how?
The information minister has said that he's committed and on behalf of the government to improve the situation. Can we cut them some slack?
Typically, I would say yes, because that is what we expect anyway. We don't expect anything better than having an improved media space where all of us can freely express our views without being attacked or anything. That's what we expect. That's what we want the state to do. But when the events have gone on for far too long and you are getting this assurance later in the day, I do not think it helps. It rather makes it look reactionary. But this is not what we are meant to be. I mean, we are Ghanaians, and I respect and love the fact that I'm a Ghanaian and I'm a patriot, a citizen. And I expect that I'll be given the facilities within which I operate to improve the lot of our people. If I cannot have that, there's no basis being a citizen of this country.
Aja, the president said he would rather like a noisy media than a silent one. And question I have on my mind is, are we getting what we ordered against what we have been served with?
Now, Johnny, we've come a long way as a nation. I mean, if we want to go back to when the Criminal Offences Act was
criminal libel law
amended, criminal libel law was repealed in 2001. I mean, all the draconian sections of that act were. Then we came to the passing of Electronic Communications Act in 2008. Then, not long ago, in 2020, the Cybersecurity Act was passed. So we've really come a long way when it comes to freedom of expression and all that. And when we talk about the media doesn't work in isolation. The media works with other players within the space. I mean, politicians, experts, and all that. Like Justice alluded to, he is worried about being aligned to any of the political parties. But I believe he votes. So definitely, you have a stand at one point.
The EC boss votes.
Exactly, at one point or the other, you have a position you take. But you see, let me use myself.
I vote well.
Justice, at every point in time, you have a position.
The Electoral Commissioner votes.
So,
naturally.
Yes. So once you vote, you have a position. So don't be too alarmed. It's not so... it's not a crime being part of a political party. You know, I can use myself as an example. As we sit here, I believe if you go onto the comment section, you're streaming live on Facebook.
That's right.
I believe when you go to the comment section, you'll be amazed at some of the things people say and some of the things that are said, especially for those in government. I remember the first day I was on set, one of my sons told me not to go to TV3 again.
Why?
Because he was just about going to school and he saw the messages rolling on there. He was so upset. Why are people insulting his mother? You get it. I had a few friends say, they stopped watching. They were watching on Facebook and they stopped watching in in a space of 10 minutes because of some of the comments they were seeing. Because these are people who know us personally. But you have people who just see you on the screen and they finally know what you even did in your mother's womb before you were born. You know, so when we talk about some of these things, this affects everybody. So when the president says you prefer a noise media to a silent one, I mean, you come into government with promises. You come into government with policies that you want to implement to enhance livelihoods. If nobody is commenting on it, if nobody is drawing your attention to how it's being done, I mean, how do you do it right?
Do you think
know,
the press have the freedom to do that?
Well, for me, with what I do, if you want to segment it, there are some radio stations that clearly, and TV stations that clearly have an agenda they are mooting. So their way of doing things is different. But when we really come to media as it's supposed to be, there's a difference between criticizing and insulting.
Well,
definitely,
I agree on that.
Definitely, when you call someone's reputation to question, they will come to the defense, or
Right.
those who know them will come to their defense.
Right.
But when you are critiquing a policy and whoever is implementing it comes to throw further light on it, to explain to you, maybe you are seeing it wrongly, this is how it's being implemented, I don't think it's a bad thing to do. We've really come far as a nation. I mean, now you have over 100 or so. If you go to any part of the country now, if you don't get a community radio station,
Actually,
you get
more
some
than
form.
400
Exactly, you get
radio stations in
some
Ghana.
form of media outlet. And now you can sit anywhere in the world and listen to any radio. I found an app online, and you can listen to radio stations all over the world. All you need to do
Radio
is...
Garden, you mean?
I should think so.
Yes, Radio
You
Garden.
can listen to any, and you look at it and it's quite interesting. You see the green dots all over,
it's Radio
and you
Garden.
can listen to radio anywhere once you have access to the internet. So we've come really far.
But I
also think that-
beyond coming very far,
Yes.
there are concerns.
Yes.
We have dropped from 30 to 60. That should worry the government.
Any well-meaning Ghanaian will be worried, not to talk about the government. And let's go to the statement that the Minister of Information released.
I disagree with the statement, by the way.
Well, that's your right.
Because the report mentions that 30% of political actors who perpetrate the atrocities. The statement never spoke about that.
Johnny,
Yes, madam.
I believe when we go into the 5 main areas that were used to assess it, I don't think the statement went into details with all those things. And we didn't, when you take the legal framework aspect, we didn't do so badly, even though we could have done better.
But when you tell me that, sorry, Laura, but when you tell me that you are committed to fixing the problem we have,
Yes,
and it is mentioning a political twist,
yes,
as I've said twice on this set, there's a political actor appointed by President Akufo-Addo in a state institution who came to my gate at TV3 to insult me.
And did you report to the security?
I have done that.
And what was done about it?
Oh, I'm waiting.
Exactly. We have institutions that operate in this country. We have laws that govern us.
So,
if we don't use the laws and use the institutions,
I'm saying that
we'll do.
why didn't
Look, the statement,
Nkrumah, as a lawyer and a journalist, why didn't he respond to the political twist?
Johnny, you have every right to agree or disagree with the statement that the minister responsible for information has released on behalf of government.
Right.
We can sit here the whole day and go into the past, even go to the early 90s, go to the era where we had coups, go to the era that we had only one radio station and one TV station and talk about. We can do that the whole day. But will it give us what we all want? Nobody is happy about the drop in ranking. But what are we going to do about it? And that is what the Minister of Information has come with. What are we looking at? The people who lead the space we all express ourselves need to be safe. A coordinated mechanism has been put together. Media training has been ongoing.
Right.
Just recently, I saw a video of the minister himself talking about misinformation and how to pick out fake news and disinformation. Right. There's the statement also indicated that we'll be collaborating with the National Media Commission.
Right.
And most importantly, why the main reason for some of these things is the economic state of most of you journalists, is the low wages and salaries that you get. We all know the favorite description,
Solidarity.
Solidarity. Yeah. Right. We've been showing
That is
solidarity. Now the real owners have explained it. Solidarity.
Yeah, solidarity.
We've been showing
What is wrong
solidarity. There's nothing wrong with showing solidarity. But sometimes when solidarity goes beyond a certain level, when solidarity doesn't become an option, but becomes someone's right, then we get problems. So some of these, when it becomes entitlement rather than it's become a human right.
Solidarity is a
So we
human
need to
right.
protect that human right and protect it. Look, you are the fourth estate of the realm. Nothing government does will fly if the media is not present to cover it. It's a collective responsibility to make sure that the people who carry our news are safe.
So make us
and
safe.
that is what the statement
Make us
has
safe.
communicated.
Make us safe.
It's up to us. We can go back. We can give examples. I believe my big sister here can give examples. I can give examples. Justice can give examples. But to what end?
You tell me.
The
You are in
statement,
government.
the report itself.
Make us feel safe.
The report itself puts out a caution that the methodology has changed, and we need to be careful of doing a comparison. Right. So I think at this point, probably the best approach, like others have indicated, we use it as the baseline. We ensure that what has been put in the statement released by the Minister for Information is adhered to. And who else will better be able to follow it? And the same people
my
will
final
seek to
question
protect.
to you is that
Yes.
it appears that elements of government are trying to downplay the report. That's what it looks like. Elements of government are trying to give us an indication that it is not as bad as the report says. And that's where the difficulty is, because if you don't admit that there's a problem, you cannot fix the problem.
But how do you prefer solutions if you haven't seen a problem?
But I'm saying
the
that
statement has preferred solutions. So
elements.
obviously there's a problem.
Okay.
The Reporters Without Borders, right?
That's right.
They have released that report.
That's right.
There have been other reports that have come in. We welcome it. It's all part of giving feedback to government on what it's doing.
Okay.
The drop in ranking, nobody even wants to drop from first to second, not to talk of dropping from 30 to 60.
Okay.
But what I seek to tell you is, at the end of the day, what do we seek to achieve? The safety of journalists. Do the recommendations and the preferred solutions that are in the statement, do they cut it? How best will we ensure that it cuts it? By making sure that we all insist and follow up to make sure that the coordinated mechanism
I hear you.
and the commission that has been put in place to make sure that the right to information law is effective also works. The collaboration that we are going to initiate with the National Media Commission, it's not like government hasn't been collaborating with it anyway, but to enhance and the solution of talking to media houses and media owners and all that, sensitizing them on how best to standardize some of these. I think those are the ones that
I
we
hear
should
you.
be focusing on.
Johnny, just
we have to bring our big sister in the conversation.
Yes, of course. You can give her the rest of the day. But I think we need to recognize that the issues being dealt with are not necessarily the quality of journalism. The issues are the security of the media space. And so it's not limited to journalists in particular. It's all of us.
People who appear on air.
Thank you. All, including yourself. You are not a journalist.
But just as if you listen
so
to
my
me
point
carefully, I said
Laura,
we are all involved in this. And I cited the example of the Facebook
No, but the solutions being
because you'll be amazed at some of the things that will be said about some of us.
And you cited one of the examples, yeah. But the point is that training journalists and retooling them is not the entire solution.
So
because it's more of the security of those who appear in the media space.
So I have said before, and I'll bring
yes,
Honorable
but
Joyce Bamutari.
There's no mention of the security aspect of it.
You see, and that is what I mentioned.
What's the coordinated mechanism supposed to achieve?
Loretta, there's a 30% of political twist in the report that Mr. Opon Krumah Esquire failed to mention, that elements within the government have found it necessary to attack the press for whatever reason.
So this is the point I was...
And he didn't mention that in his statement. And I'm saying that people in government assume that they understand agenda setting, priming and framing, which we are taught at GIJ. People assume that they must teach journalists to do our work.
Remember
let me not be
so the point I'm making... How does training a journalist or retooling a journalist really affect everything, all the issues that we are discussing?
I don't endorse that. That's why I asked you, have you reported the appropriate people? But this same minister that you're seeking to call out, you heard about the attack on Ada FM. He was the same minister that came out and condemned it. He's one of you. He understands, he probably understands your workings better than some of us. You get it? The 30% political thing, you also don't need to, you also don't want to limit it to just government operatives. It's stated clearly in the report that media stations are owned by politicians, politicians and people linked to politicians. It's stated in that. I'm not quoting.
We have to bring Honorable Joyce in.
You get it?
You see,
it's something that we all need to deal with collectively. But now, if you want to pick and choose what has to go in and what doesn't have to go in. That's why I started by saying you have every right to disagree or agree with whatever has been put up. But the most important thing is the solutions that are preferred and how well we make sure that it's implemented efficiently.
I'll say this in a minute. And I'm passionate about this because I've been attacked. Government says it is training journalists or retooling them. Government has not thought about a standardized pay grade for journalists. Government has not spoken about media ownership. There are people in your party, in the NDC, who own radio stations. Government has not considered, safety of journalists. Government, again, has not considered, for example, the training regime. And there are too many mushroom journalism schools that are springing up everywhere. So when you start the conversation in a certain populist way of trying to put people together to say you are training people, you have done nothing. I practice in the space. Kojo has practiced in the space. He knows what I'm talking about. So when you put a statement out, 3-pager, and you ignore the real germane issues, I will not agree with you. And I detest it when people within the political space want to teach us how to do our job. I detest it. I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional.
Jody, you've been teaching us how to do our jobs every morning.
I pay my taxes to you.
So what is wrong with us also chipping in what you do?
You don't take my taxes. Let's bring Auntie Joyce in. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm waxing emotional. Forgive me.
Good morning to all of you. And you know this time of yours, I'm still struggling to get the right time. I think I was probably...
We apologize profusely.
A few minutes late this morning. And I am actually in two minds this morning about this conversation. But of course, I take great solace from the preamble to our 1992 Constitution,
Right.
which speaks largely to the question of what actually constitutes freedoms, liberties of a people, irrespective. And I think that it speaks about our spirit of friendship.
Right.
It speaks about a very solemn declaration and affirmation of our commitment to freedom, justice, probity, and accountability. It speaks also to the rule of law and speaks about the protection and preservation of fundamental human rights and freedoms, unity and stability for our nation. I see a certain posturing and even largely a certain attempt at a denial. I realize that there is enormous impunity in how we have sought to run the affairs of the country for the last few years. And maybe this impunity has actually also led us to these pseudo attempts to gag, to control, and to be ruthless when it comes to persons who either stand in the way of the powers that be or seek to criticize or even toe a certain line. And you know, when people speak about what constitutes freedoms, I think it sometimes goes beyond necessarily the attacks on the media or on the press or on individual journalists by whoever it is.
Right.
It can also go towards arrests even in the event where a media person probably acts outside of his usual rules and regulations. It can also go even to the way people get attacked on social media, everywhere. You know, that report actually speaks volumes. And I believe that in the past, Ghana had actually ranked at some point second or third in
That's right.
Africa.
We're third.
And then 30th actually on the world rankings out
That's
of
right.
180. Indeed, we have gone down to about another 30 places, which means that matters have actually worsened at the time when all our conversations have actually been largely around the rule of law. There's a very interesting case that I know that our judges love to quote. It's a US case, and it's about Rupert Murdoch, who I'm sure a lot of the matters to do with media and freedoms have actually revolved around him and
That's
his
right.
media empire.
That's right.
And on each occasion where he has won on these matters, it has always been about what? To enshrine, to protect, and to ensure that nothing that a court does will seek to take away even a scintilla of any perceived freedom to speak and be at liberty to criticize and be at liberty to preach whatever, for as long as it was to advance the cause of liberties as a people.
So what are we getting wrong?
First, it is that we try too hard to define what constitutes these freedoms and what goes into the freedoms, what ingredients we should be reading. You remember there was a case with the NMC,
Right.
the Ghana Private Broadcasters Association.
That's LI 2224.
LI22, excellent.
Right.
Matters of that
Contest
kind,
standardization bill.
excellent. It is one of them.
Right.
Then, of course, there is also all of the other pseudo-inconsistent rules and regulations that we all operate under. And even in defense of some of these matters, Madame Elizabeth Ohene, a very key figure, an advocate of media freedoms, for the first time had reason even to write to her former employers. It will be interesting to see the content of the response that will come eventually to that letter from the BBC. And you remember recently the case of P.S. Morgan and how the matter was handled by their version of the NMC. You know, I think, let me also say that I admire Kojo Oponkuma's tenacity of spirit, that he has even come out this morning to indicate a certain preparedness to do better. One, as a practitioner himself, two, as a lawyer, and three, as Ghana's information minister and member of parliament at this time. Look, we listened to the Honorable Kandapa when he addressed the judiciary recently. He spoke about the seeming perception of an extreme leaning towards a certain aisle of the political divide. that perceived partisanship does not help our whole democratic experiment. That is one.
Well, his party people disagreed with him.
But you see, that is the whole point. That is part of the liberties that we all seek to defend. I think sometimes it is heartwarming when you have individuals from the center, from the fulcrum, who speak in this manner. Then it does not appear as if when I speak from rather the very partisan position of the NDC per se. You understand? And to speak to Justice saying that he didn't belong to NPP. They are human beings just like you in the NDC and NPP. And I don't think that we think very differently about things. If I were attacked as an individual, I would know. Look, they have all these armies of social media young persons. Some very, very bright, some who write very, very well. And there you go out there and speak to or comment on a certain matter. You'll be taking on like almost a whole beehive chasing you on social media. That is one. These are all ingredients that feed into that perception that we are actually degenerating in terms of what media freedoms are. Then you come to the incidents that have characterized the environment too. You know, we take this notion about a government being feared too far. I remember not too long ago, there was a matter involving Ghana's First Lady.
Right.
And how the whole issue was handled. And I remember Samson came out with a certain take, just as you do every now and then, regarding the fact that, like you said, in that space, not every media practitioner or journalist is kosher, in quote, or is out there doing the right thing.
Right.
There's moonlighting in most of our professions. It is why most professional bodies actually have a way that they regulate our conduct as professionals. Because it's not all of us who would probably toe the line, and when we fall short, there must be ways to address some of these shortcomings.
Ethics.
You know, it does not lie in our mouth, really, to preach about the historic antecedents. In any case, the birth of the 1992 Constitution was to bring to an end a certain era where a lot of this pseudo lack of freedoms were actually laced into our political space because of this tenure or coups and what have you. Times when constitutions were actually suspended and there really was there were no laws really to try and bring all of these things under a certain umbrella. So naturally, this constitution was also to do what the framers intended, to address all of these things that hitherto nobody bothered even to think about. So, Johnny, if we have peer review mechanisms, and I believe that this is one of such mechanisms, we've had reports from the EIU recently. We've had the Human Rights Report. And remember that all of these things dovetail into this perception of our position on the index regarding media freedoms and how they are degenerating. It is a very, very harrowing and candid, perceptive view. But it's also a view that naturally dovetails into the narrative.
Cover this.
Absolutely.
Where do we go from here?
I think that, first and foremost, if we indeed are purveyors of everything that is freedom of speech, that we believe that at the bane or to underlie or underscore our constitutional experiment is the notion of freedoms. And when you go to our legal cases, you find a raft of decisions regarding the protection and preservation of our rights and freedoms. Those articles in chapters 5 and 6 are critical also to the survival of our democracy. Once we start to erode these freedoms and eat into whatever little we have, it portends for enormous challenges. Johnny, the way forward is for us to go back to drawing cards. Because usually most of these things start especially with political parties.
But the president has given us commitment. Mr. Nkrumah has given us commitment as well.
I said to you this morning that I would actually leave the exception from Mr. Nkrumah, that coming out of a space of so many defenses and attacks on persons who have tried even to speak to matters that are not necessarily coming from my mind or the minds of any other person, but from these reports that serve as a mechanism for you to review your internal things, irrespective. We're a sovereign country, yes. But there's also a certain international connotation to all of these things. And that if you claim and model yourself on the lines of democracy, that some principles must of necessity be present. That people must feel free, especially people within the media, for example. Look at the headlines of this morning. These are all attempts that tell you that there's a certain gagging of general freedoms. Because you see the headlines, they're almost synchronized. They even appear syndicated sometimes, and you marvel. I listened to a radio newspaper review this morning that spent minutes repeating a statement by the MPP General Secretary in response to President Mahama's presentation a few days ago that it was described as a scam. I have been on platforms where people have used the term 419, which literally connotes the same scam, and they have been sanctioned and asked to withdraw, even against one another. But you hear some people within the same fraternity who still use these things, and then they hide under the guise of the fact that, oh, it's a newspaper review, it's someone who said it. You know, Johnny, going forward, I think that the Journalists Association itself must bear its teeth. And in times past, they used to. I listened to a very clumsy interview yesterday, and it actually surprised me that in the same space, at least in the 10 years since I have been actively involved in politics, I've never had such a demure attempt to protect the journalists in the case of such a world-received.
Okay.
And then take it to also to the judiciary. Because indeed, all of these freedoms, the protection of them and enshrining of them will come from how the judiciary itself handles matters of this kind.
I hear you.
Then, of course, the Ghana Bar Association, that was very vociferous in times past.
Of which you are
I
a
am still
member.
waiting. Absolutely.
Of which Justice Abdullah is a member.
Absolutely. So you see, there is a whole, there is a very senior member, but there's a whole, but you know, a whole gamut of these issues that are very germane.
Okay.
So I want to believe that our brother Nkrumah, and I don't want to put too much premium on whatever statements His Excellency the President has made in the past. In fact, in the case of the current First Lady,
I trust my president.
yes, well, I'm sure you should. He is the same president who told us to be citizens and not spectators. But at any given time that we have actually criticized to a certain level, we know what has come up. We know how the communications outfit has come
Joyce
out.
didn't want to do
how
this.
Yes.
all of
Joyce
these
didn't want to do
individuals
this. Now you're
have
pushing
come
it.
out to deal with us. You know, so naturally we do have all. I have been at the receiving end of all forms of
Like
insult.
Laura too. That's
Oh,
what
I
share.
have got, I think, a lot worse than Laura too. I mean, in the
You
last
see
few
the
weeks,
trend
maybe.
on this
But you know, it is not
So now
personal.
it's a comparison.
No, but it's not
we
personal.
have to take a break. On return,
You know?
we will talk about E-Levy, but see you after the break. Welcome back and thank you very much indeed. Justice Abdullah is my guest in studio. He is a private legal practitioner. He's also a teacher of the law at the UPSA. Joyce Bar-Mukhtari is special aide to ex-President Mahama, and Naja Lauratu is here on the ticket of the NPP. So before the break, I mentioned we'll talk about E-Levy. There's a 7-0 defeat for the three who took the matter to the court. Haruna Idrisu, Honorable Mahama Yarika, and Okucheto Ablakwa. Are you surprised?
Johnny, I am rather surprised about the emphasis on the 7-0. I think it's so needless that the media has been picking on the numbers of judges who deliver decisions as it's now become the new
Mr. Kandapa led us.
song in town. Every time a decision is made, we are interested in the numbers that give the decision rather than the substance of the decision. I think the substance is more important as far as I'm concerned. And we should all remember that from where I sit, I think the going to court by Haruna Idrisu and co was a very good decision. And I think they did it for all of us. It's not a personal thing. So to make them look like they've gone to court and lost, for me, it's not something that
Give me some legal education. So, interlocutory injunction. I want to understand.
Go ahead.
Now, the deduction started on the 1st of May. The matter was supposed to have been heard yesterday. and the deduction started anyway. Give me some legal education.
So that's what I was coming to, that the substance rather matter more to me than how the numbers and
Don't mind
and
us.
those ones are
Don't mind
they are
us.
pure mischief that
We're
are not
looking for
necessary.
headlines.
So having said that, then when the application for injunction was filed, I was all over town that as per my understanding of the law and the practice of our profession, the moment an application is filed and served, it operates to freeze the status quo until the application is disposed of. Now, this has been the practice of the law. This has been the law as we know it to be.
You need to come to my level.
And so what it means is that if you are in court with someone and the person files an injunction application, and that injunction application, you are given one. That's what we mean by having to serve you with a copy.
Right.
It means that you are on notice that this is pending. And so you have no right to conduct yourself such that whatever is prevailing all the way to the moment that you were served remains so until the court determines otherwise.
Okay.
This is the law. And this is law
So
101.
the GRA shouldn't have gone ahead to...
This is law 101.
Absolutely.
No, I thank God my senior, that she puts it better. A highly, how did you put it? A very good senior, but the highest form of seniority. And indeed, I respect that. I will not take that away from Joyce. She's good at, good one at that. And so this is the law. Now, just before the application was heard, I think a few days before the application was heard, I heard that the majority leader, Chairman Sir, in a press conference, insisting that the deductions will go on anyway. And the actions of government and other state actors all fed into this whole conduct that the deductions would go on, notwithstanding the pendency of the application. I can understand that if the state is arguing that maybe they only heard it in the media space about the pendency of the application,
Right.
that I can understand. That is not enough because that's not service. So, however, having been served and responded to the application by the Attorney General, it is deemed that every arm of government is aware, particularly those who are in charge of this, i.e. the GRA.
What remedies are available?
So, no, now that conduct clearly amounts to contempt of court. And straight away, you would have to serve a
So why
prison
didn't the
sentence or some form of
Supreme
sanction.
Court, Supreme Court mention that yesterday?
So this is where I'm coming to. So going to court yesterday, what I was hoping to hear was how the Supreme Court dealt with that matter, because that is significant. It's a huge blow.
The contemptible, you know.
And this is a contempt of the Supreme Court, not an ordinary court.
Right.
We're not talking about a district court or a high court or any other court. We're talking about the Supreme Court, the apex. And this, for me, was what I was waiting to hear. Unfortunately, nothing has been said about it. And I don't know whether both sides both sides never even mentioned this, or the Supreme Court did not take notice of this huge anomaly that had happened. And this is not something that you can easily wish away, because really this has been about 5 days or 4 days of deductions, unlawful deductions actually. 4 days of unlawful deductions. That, for me, should have even been a basis for the Supreme Court to have granted the application because of the misconduct of the government. Not because the application had some serious merit, but because of the misconduct, because that is taken into consideration in the exercise of a discretionary power.
But the GRA has a legal advisor.
And no legal advisor within the GRA would advise them to go ahead with the deduction.
So why,
no lawyer.
So why did they do that?
This, I can bet my life on it, that no lawyer would do that.
So why did they do that?
So clearly, something went wrong. That is why I refer to Chairman Sabonsu's press conference.
Right.
Clearly meaning that there had been an agenda within government that, notwithstanding the pendency of the application, they will still go ahead. This is not the lawyer's advice from GRA. This is the government's position. And nobody can advise
but
me.
Our president is
convince
a lawyer.
me. And the president knows this even better than
is a
everyone.
lawyer.
The president knows this
There are
better
too
than
many
all
lawyers
of us
in government.
And the Attorney General, good friend, Godfred, knows this way better. And so it's very difficult for me to appreciate the basis for which the 4 days deductions went on without any legal sanctions. And the fact that the Supreme Court even allowed this to fly yesterday for me, is more disturbing because somebody should have been questioned on this. Somebody should be answering to some of these queries, and somebody should be sanctioned. Seriously, I mean, you cannot misconduct yourself unlawfully, and see, this kind of conduct perpetuates autocratic perception that we have of the government, and it's not right. For me, like you said, I trust and I love my president and I trust him and I expect the best from him. And so if these things are going on under his watch, his favorite phrase, I'm naturally disturbed.
Okay.
Because it cannot happen under a democratic regime.
Hajia, the lawyers have spoken. What say you?
Okay, so
One lawyer has spoken.
I think
So
I would love you make.
But your senior colleague agreed.
No, he may agree, but he
Largely.
still will have his own bite.
Yeah, she will have a bite.
She will still have her
There's
own
a
bite.
slant to it that I totally disagreed with. So
okay.
you let
That's
me
fine.
to-
Okay,
have
so
your-
whilst the lawyers do their junior and
Okay.
senior,
Yeah, you two.
I
We'll do our
think
friendship.
The lay,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
you and I
Our
being
friends
the
who are
lay,
learned.
Yes, they
And,
are
yes,
learned
yes,
friends,
yes.
and we the lay people.
We the lay people, yes.
What I know is government needed revenue. Parliament passed an act to get revenue.
Right.
We've been through this for God knows how long.
And then there was an injunction.
Then it finally passed. Citizens decided that what was done, they didn't find it right. They've taken it to court. They went yesterday to go and seek an injunction at the apex court. For those of us who are not learned, it's like that's the highest level. It's like that's the best of the best within their
That's right.
fraternity.
space, yeah.
So they unanimously dismissed that application for injunction and went further to say GRA should continue but keep enough records so they can do a refund. Because once you take a case to court, it's either you win or you lose.
But then lawyer Abdullah is suggesting that the deduction should not have happened at all until the matter is properly heard in court.
Johnny,
Yes, boss.
when I was sitting in law class, I wasn't there.
Okay.
Johnny,
This is what-
let me actually
justice.
add. No.
Let
Sorry,
me-
I'm not taking it away from
Yeah.
you. I just need to add that, as a matter of fact, the deduction could have only started 7 days from yesterday. Assuming. Could have only started 7 days from yesterday, which means that if today is, I think today's date is 5th, it could only have started from the 12th.
So
Technically, this is when the deduction could have started
can
from.
I, as a private citizen, if I've done a transaction and it's been deducted, can I go to court to enforce my rights?
Absolutely. You
Can
have
I
a
take
legal
the
right based on
GRA
this.
on?
Absolutely. You
Let's-
have a legal
let's-
right
let's make
to
money
retrieve
then.
your funds.
Let's
Johnny,
make money.
Hey. This is serious. You go to court to make money?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to enforce my
Okay.
rights because you've
fine.
deducted
No,
from me.
it's within,
No, in
it's
principle,
within your
yes,
right.
in principle, you
Anybody
can.
has the right to
In
go
principle.
to court to seek whatever they want to.
Right.
But this is what I know. I'm not a legal person. An act has been passed to raise revenue for government. It's been taken to court. There was an application for injunction.
Hajia, what
It
was the
thrown
rush
out.
for?
Rush for what?
Because you see, the law itself that was passed in Parliament,
Yes.
the president assented to it, even without completely finishing all the 16 town hall meetings that the government promised to hold. He only
Was-
did 6.
Was the town halls tied to the...
It was.
he
That's what Mr.
assented to
Furiata
it?
said. That's what Kojo Nkrumah said. That's what the president himself said, that we will engage the people and bring them along. Only 6 town hall meetings.
No,
were held.
we'll
We have
engage-
16 administrative regions.
Johnny, you are sitting in Accra. You followed all the 6. Were you not part of all the 6 town
And
hall
I'm saying
meetings?
that you promised 16. You did 6. President hurriedly signed, assented to it, and it was
Well,
gazetted.
that's your opinion, and
No,
I
it's
can't
not my
and I
opinion.
can't begrudge
I'm
you
just-
for that.
I'm just stating facts.
Consultations, you can plan to do a number of consultations. You can plan to do things in a certain way. You get halfway, get your results, and the feedback you get determines otherwise.
You did Western Region, you did Greater Accra, you did Volta Region, you did Upper East, you did Tamale, you did Eastern Region.
And I can tell you, for instance, for the bit about for the town hall in Tamale, it captured the other regions that were cut off. Savannah and Northeast were part of the Northern Region.
And in Western Region, you joined Cape Coast.
That's what I'm explaining to you, that you can plan to do something. You get the desired results as you move on. Whichever, anyway, when was the budget read?
17th November, 2021.
Ideally, the provisions in the budget or the estimates there should have taken effect from beginning of the year. We've already lost revenue. So if you say the president hurriedly signed, I don't know where.
But when the appropriations and estimates were done,
yes,
the E-Levy was not part of it.
And the E-Levy was finally passed.
It was a big matter in Parliament. I followed it up.
The E-Levy was finally passed. We discussed this here a number of weeks.
Yes, I know, but the E-Levy was passed, and then three people took it to court.
Yes, and they took it to the Supreme Court. And that was the same court they went yesterday to seek an injunction, and that injunction was dismissed. With other instructions.
And I'm suggesting.
So who do we listen to?
And I'm suggesting to you that
we listen to justice or we listen to the judges at the Supreme Court?
I am saying that, no, I'm not a lawyer. But
I'm also not a lawyer. That's why you're asking me a question. I'm trying to get an understanding.
But I'm saying that
do we listen to justice here?
But I'm saying that
they themselves will tell you it comes with technicalities, it comes with opinions, it comes with all that for the profession that they find themselves in. I'm not one of them. The court. Don't let us go.
Take all my time.
No, you get your time. I'm suggesting to you that
they've gone for an injunction. The injunction has been dismissed. GRA has been asked to continue taking it. Make sure they keep in enough records. It could go either way.
Okay.
If it goes the way of Honorable Henry Dusu and the two others, then GRA has to do a refund. And I don't think refunding money back to people will be such a looking at the systems that are being used. And it's even still being built upon.
Okay.
So I think what the Supreme Court has said is what I will go by as a lay person and a citizen.
Okay. What I know is that you promised us 16 town hall meetings. You have done only 6.
Well, we got our results.
You did?
After 6.
You did? Okay. I hear you. I won't begrudge you.
Now you're teaching us how to do our job. Now you're teaching us how to do our job. Then you complain when we try to chip in a bit. I thought you were going to take Justice one when he was talking about the headline. I thought you were going to say he was putting the safety of the journalist who put out the headline.
I am
in
not.
danger.
He's a lawyer. I can't fight him.
So you can fight me, but you can't fight a lawyer.
I'm not fighting you. Don't suggest that.
Oh, okay.
Choice.
Look, I think that we ought to get very serious in this country. We ought to take institutions of government very seriously. We ought to allow for institutions to work independently of the executive, sorts of interfering unnecessarily. Look, when discerning people, leaders, take certain actions, make certain pronouncements, we ought to start to worry. It is therefore no news that we are getting all these wrong perceptions out there. I mean, that's what government wants to call it, but they are real. Look, for there to be a matter of this kind, before no mean a court, but the Supreme Court, and for government to go ahead with the implementation of the E-Levy, there's been enormous disrespect in how government has carried itself, even in Parliament. How the views of the minority have this far been treated with a certain nonchalance, a certain disregard for the pillars of democracy, a total annihilation of all that we've always... Look, Jerry Rawlings, when the VAT was first introduced.
1995.
Yes, there was a huge pushback. It generated enormous opprobrium. It was withdrawn for further consultations.
Until 1998.
Absolutely. So to have a pseudo-democrat like President Akufo-Addo, there can be no excuse there can absolutely be no excuse. And irrespective of what defenses, what commentary government runs and government aficionados and spokespersons put out there, the majority group leader, the Honorable Osei Chairman Sabonso, should be sanctioned. We remember the pronouncements of Kennedy Japan, the Honorable, that led to the eventual murder of Ahmed Sualu. He's still walking around a free man. You see, when you and I sit here, yes, and we make certain pronouncements, remember that it trickles down. It dovetails into the narrative. It even seeks to either annoy or anger the general populace. This tax, the E-Levy tax, has been one of the most regressive, one of the most criticized, one of the most useless taxes ever.
Yeah, but someone says you cannot abolish it when you come to power. It says come.
But of course, they told us that we would even lose in court and that we were wasting our time. It was a futile exercise. People in parliament, leaders, the Attorney General himself made very unnecessary comments, totally unbefitting of his office. And I think that he needs to reflect very carefully on his attitude, his approach, and his pronouncements as government's Attorney General and advisor. He works on behalf of all citizens. And as a member of the bar, he needs to take his ethics very seriously. Even yesterday, after the matter was heard, he made very unnecessary comments, even about one of the members at the bar, who was a lawyer on the other side. It is not his duty to police his colleagues and how they approach prosecuting their cases before the Supreme Court. But let's come back to another point, because justice has spoken largely to the impunity, to the disrespect of the process. And surprisingly, the same Supreme Court that spent most of the time in the course of the petition a few years ago criticizing our approach and our utterances had nothing to say for these individuals who had made all these totally quorum in judice comments in the course of the matter. But come back to the point it made about GRA and how it kept flouting the clauses of the
GRA has lawyers.
Administrative Act. And let me tell you this only because we are on this platform, that the lawyers have no inkling. You can go there and check for yourself of what is even going on. They have no idea. In fact, they are not even in the loop.
This from the top?
Please go and cross-check. You are in the media. You can find your own information.
We can, yes.
You understand?
RTI.
But the court had reason, and that is the only good thing that came out of the process yesterday, to caution the Ghana Revenue Authority to ensure that the tax refund account would be credited with these monies that are currently being taken. Because in the event of the eventual ruling being against the implementation, they will have. But go and check what has happened to the refund account over the years. The funds have all been totally misapplied. And it is in the Auditor General's report currently. Check. So you see, there is so much impunity. Look, all of our state institutions now are being operated on autopilot, taking instructions daily, because everybody must serve and be totally subservient to President Akufo-Addo's whims and caprices.
That's not fair.
But that is the truth, because I have expected on occasion that His Excellency the President will come out even and counter some of these things that his own officers are doing and saying. Matters of press freedoms, for example, perception of the Supreme Court, and how Ghanaians perceive the law courts. These are matters that should be at the forefront of a one-time human rights activist who demonstrated against just about everything. It is actually what has propelled him to this level. But 6 years later, what do we see?
We have to go.
Suddenly, his views have all changed.
We have to go. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, before we leave, Akosia Menu of National Youth Authority.
Oh, Akosia Menu.
She says I should say hi to all of you. That
hi.
She's watching all of
Akosia,
you. She mentions you in person.
I
and you know you.
Cozy looks like my wife. So she knows I am a son.
Cozy is a lovely person, but you know, I remember
She's probably one of the loveliest.
A few years ago, there were all these attacks. I'm not sure whether she set them up or somebody else. And they rained all these insults on me. And I thought you are wasting your effort, you know, because Akosia actually is a very lovely young woman.
Very
you know, and I told her once that
she's just and I... Hajia.
I know Hajia is very strong.
Hajia
is too strong.
Hajia fights too much. And you see, sometimes you need to concede.
Hajia is a nice person.
She's a very nice person. She just fights too hard. Sometimes you need to know just when you see, and you are also...
to put a break.
And you are also speaking to some people. Oh, sometimes, you know, I said, listen carefully. You fight too hard. That's what
that's
it's
not
advice.
But you're a nice person.
Very sweet person.
that's
You know how she likes to fight plenty.
No, that's an unfair comment.
But I know her to be very strong.
Anyway, Justice Abdullahi is a teacher of the law. He is also with the Crown Legal Bureau here in Accra. Justice, thank you very much indeed. You didn't bring me meat and rice.
Okay,
Johnny?
and you are my big
Honorable
sister.
Joyce Bar Mukhtari is former Deputy Minister for Transport. She is also special aide to ex-President John Mahama. And Aja Loratu is here on the ticket of the NPP. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming. Yeah, and she knows she's a nice person too. Cozy, good morning to you. And a few messages. Good morning, Johnny. The court should continue throwing every issue or matter out. If my memory serves me right, I can remember any issue sent to court by opposition party has never come out with good news. Well, Kotoka Courage sent that one. Messiah sent this one. It says, E-Levy. If 137 cannot reject government's budget, how can 136 approve the E-Levy? We are keenly watching the decision of the Supreme Court. A rather long one here. It says, Johnny, we are not saying per se that attacks on journalists, just like any other evil and any government, is necessarily sanctioned by chief scribe as the president is represented in many institutions because he cannot be physically there. But the matter in which the president responds and the manner, in which the president responds and acts on the perpetrators of those evil acts would tell us if indeed those evil acts do not receive the blessings of the chief scribe. Shalom. Dennis Akwete sent that one. It says, John says, Ghanaian spoke to about the culture of silence under the regime. They denied it. The U.S. report on human rights in Ghana painted a gloomy picture about us. They lambasted it. Today, a report on press freedom has dropped as 30 spots down, and they are still defending it. Well, if your mother die, where you say she no die, when your headache, okay, John, this one is too strong. And diesel has gone up by 11 cedis 30 per Swiss at Shell. Its total is that's a total. Wow, interesting. Happy birthday to my son. He's 3 years old. Ivan Beresford Park Kwesi Obrimpon Hughes 1. He didn't sleep yesterday. Yes, 3 years only. It's tormenting me.
He can cause trouble.
We'll see you after the break. We'll have a conversation with BBC shortly. Stay with us. We'll be right back.